separated when I was 15. Right, so I was a sophomore in high school. Even before that, like I wasn't really applying myself in school, but that had more to do, I think, with being the youngest and my parents being older. You know, this is the 90s, so both my parents work full-time jobs. They're tired by this time. Like they're not really trying to they're not that young, engaged parent as like my older siblings probably got, right?
Yes.
But anyway, by the time they get divorced, and then it's like, oh, fuck all of this, right? Like I'm not challenged by any of this. I am mildly interested in history and English.
Me too.
Math soured on me because of the teachers, and science soured on me because of the teachers.
Same.
Like I would have been interested in them if it was for the subject matter,
right?
But the teachers. But this one teacher, his name was Charles Ross. I don't remember almost any other teacher in all 13 years of public school education. And he was never my teacher. He was just my homeroom teacher,
right?
Like at one point. But in my high school career, I stayed back freshman year. So that was probably like when like my parents' marriage was dissolving.
Right.
And then, so in my 5th year of high school, I had, because of the way the credits and scheduling worked out, I had 3 lunches.
What? Yeah, I get that.
Because like they couldn't put me in a class that I had to take until like the afternoon.
Yeah, I get it.
So I used to one of my lunches, I used to voluntarily go to his class and sit in the back of his class just because of how well he taught, how engaged he was, and to the point of like your earlier story about your family at the table, he let me be there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like he didn't be like, well, kid, you're not in my class. Like whatever's going on is none of his business after that.
Yes.
But he let me be there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so I realized that like, okay, what I'm interested in is really dope shit.
Yes.
Like the things that do get my interest are dope shit.
Yes.
And I'm interested in different things. Like I'm also not just interested in the easy shit.
Right. No, that's not what it was. Yes.
Right. Like I wasn't interested in stuff, especially because I'm a 5th year senior. So by all measures, I'm not exemplary.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Their metrics. Right.
Back in the day, I would have called it a failure. But in
Yeah.
2024, we'll say I'm not exemplary, right? But like the point is like, no, there was a lot more to consider than was being considered.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, yes.
Like in the whole, like my personal life, household, the education system.
Yeah, it's not just you check this box, you hand this
Yeah.
That's at that age.
Right.
There were people too, like teachers, Mr. Castellucci, Miss LaPlaga. These were English teachers who they knew, okay, this kid's going to struggle to hand things in.
Yeah.
But he's a participant in class. He reads the book, so he can be still a catalyst in the group discussion, and a hell of a good one.
Yeah.
So they took that interest and let me exist in the space that I was able to exist in at that time in my life.
Right.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I remember this was interesting. I was talking to my girlfriend the other day. There's this guy, I don't know what his job was. He was an assistant or something, because he wasn't a full-time teacher. But he would always be in the halls, and would always be in classes here and there. And I don't remember why, I started talking to him just every now and then. His name was Mr. DeRosa. And I don't know where he came from, but he came from somewhere else, because I remember some kid got into it with him one time. And I just remember him slamming the book down and saying, and I'm not from Freehold, whatever. Like, so I don't know where he came from.
Okay.
But I remember he took an interest, and one time he let me these books. He let me like a Carl Jung, like deeper stuff that I wasn't getting in the regular book. And I would return. He said, "As long as you give it back, I'll give you another one. You know, I'll give you this Freud book or what." And I don't know what it became of him or anything else. And now thinking back, I'm like, maybe he was some sort of counselor or something that knew what I was about and was trying to reach out, and I didn't even know it.
Right.
But he was a catalyst.
Yeah.
And I remember, so the only reason I didn't have to do an extra year was because I did summer school twice intensively. Like I went to like a whole semester in summer school. I'll tell you the truth though.
Yeah.
The way my mind was working and the way my personality was, I got A's, all A's in summer school. The reason was Now I'm in a condensed curriculum. So my mind is quick. I can do this work, but I can do it even quicker.
Yeah.
Now I'm in this condensed curriculum where I gotta work because I gotta get through this and I gotta pass and I gotta do it. Like I'm motivated more because it's not these long semesters. And now I'm with all these kids that like also have their own little issues, their own little rebellions. Now I'm the smart like leader of the delinquents, and they weren't delinquents, and I wasn't a delinquent. But for lack of a better term, we were the ones that messed around in school, one reason or the other. Whether this kid was, I don't know, out to lunch for this reason, this one was going through something with his parents. You know, this one just didn't want to do anything. We all came together in that space, and now I'm this, I can do I have the ability. Some of the other kids do, some of the kids don't, doesn't matter. Now they're looking to me, and the teacher's looking to me, and I'm a star in that area, and it's my people, because now it's like us, the misfits. And now it's fun, and I love it. My father still makes like, how does this kid love summer school? I loved it. And it's all the misfits, the whole district. It's not just my school. They meet new people. I thrived in those spaces, but it showed me like, okay, there's some academic proclivity. But I didn't reach it until years later.
I think there's a lot to be said for summer school. I think there's like a whole TED Talk and book series and podcast that can be done on public school, summer school. Like, for one, I think it was one of those things that I wasn't conscious of it at the time. But I think it's one of those things where like it was a chink in the chain of the education system to me. Like, if I could fail a thing all year and pass it in the summer, what are we really talking about here?
Good point.
Right? Like maybe, like to your point, maybe my brain is atrophying doing this for 9 months.
I could see it.
But if you gave it to me in 3 months, it's at the pace of my brain.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But we don't get to make that choice.
But it was at the pace of our brains.
Punitive thing. It's never like you could take an advanced fast track course. And if you pass it, you pass it. And if you don't, you got to spend the next 6 months. So it's like you could just flip it in reverse.
Yes, you could.
You know what I mean? And also, I do remember having this somewhat conscious thought at the time of like, the kids that show up in summer school, especially because similarly, like I was not a misfit in terms of behavior or like causing trouble. Or any of those things. I was a misfit in terms of being a fucking teenager, so fuck you. But like,
me too.
You know what I mean? But like, in summer school, you're in the class with the misfits and the troublemakers and whatnot. But everybody in summer school could have not gone to summer school.
And everybody just dropped out.
Fuck this. Everybody's there. You can't make a kid go to summer school.
No, you're
you
right.
You can make a kid go to school, but you can't make him go to summer school.
It's very true.
Everybody who's there is there like intentional.
To do, and there was something to be said about that energy.
But they're not quitters or losers or failures or those things. And this system is kind of fucked. So like, let's talk about that. But I think it's also something that I experienced with the teachers. I think that also kind of got like highlighted even more the same way. Was like in summer school, the teachers can tell
very quickly.
Who's struggling with the subject matter,
very quickly.
Who's intent on not being engaged, and who's this is just fucking, they're smarter than this. This is like, because there's plenty of teachers who, this curriculum is a waste of their time. They're smarter than that. So they can see that in students.
And I think it speaks to like the grander, what the theme of even some of the show is who is defining people and where they are. And it's like, there's only so many tools in the public school system to address this wide swath of people from all these different home lives, all these different backgrounds, all these different abilities and learning styles. And you have to just settle on whatever curriculum. There's AP this or remedial that, but it only goes so far. And actually addressing the individual needs of different students. And the summer school classes were smaller. And I think, like you said, there's more of as much as there's different levels of kids even in summer school, there's some cohesion in that you all didn't make it through the school year for one reason, and you're all here to intentionally pass it. And even that is a catalyst to get you. And you had 3 lunches, by the way. I had 2 gyms my senior year. Because I didn't have enough credits for gym because it was my absences. I cut school all the time. All the time. So I had not enough credits to pass without like 4 years of gym. So they had to give me 2 gyms, which was great because I'm at 2 gyms in senior. I'm playing wiffle ball, I'm playing volleyball, I'm playing football, flag football. I'm in the freshman health, and every time people's like, well, Larry, you have a lot of experience. It's probably you're a senior. Why don't you tell them about relationships? I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, so it was an interesting way out of high school.
Yeah.
But then my best friend at the time played football for St. Peter's Prep in Jersey City, and he got a full ride scholarship to Nebraska. He's out, right? As soon as high school's over, he's out. He's a coach now. He wound up transferring later to UNC, and he's a football coach. And that's still my best friend, you know. Grew up with him. But he's out right after high school.
Right.
My other friend decides, I'm not going to college. I'm going to the Marines because my brother's in the Marines. There's a couple year window there where we're just fooling around doing whatever, then he goes. My other friend, John, he goes to school because I think there was pressure, you know, to go to a traditional school. We went down to Rowan, we went up to Ramapo. We kind of hang out for a long time, but then he kind of goes in solitude, goes a different path, and then he actually wants to take his own life.
Oh, wow.
John. So the reason I bring up those, that was like kind of the four-man crew where I wouldn't say we were per se misfits. I had a lot of friends you walk into school in the morning, I had a bunch of friends during the day. But my buddies after school were these three guys. Two of them went to private schools. One played hockey at St. John Vianney, and Joe played ball at St. Peter's Prep. And John went to school with me, but then John. So now I'm out of high school. And I don't know what the hell to do with myself. Because here's the other thing when you go through divorces like that. Neither of my parents graduated college. So while other kids were learning how to pass their SATs, writing college essays, I never took the SATs. I never took them. Because I didn't even know, like, no one was there to tell me, this is when you study, you miss the deadline. I just didn't do it. So at this point, I'm thinking, this is just how powerful certain guidance and certain people come into your life, even for a split second, can be. My father just sees that he thinks I'm going down the wrong path. I'm drinking early, I'm partying. Now, at this time, I'm fully convinced that I'm not going to college, I'm not doing anything with education, and like I'm going to be a rapper. That's my thing. Now look, we're gonna get back to it because I still participate heavily in that art form. It's made me a lot of my friends, a lot of my relationships. But you know, being the age I am now and seeing the challenges and things like that it's kind of, not that I wasn't talented at music and poetry, but you know,
it's not the pursuit that
bro. And I'm 19, and come on. So, and I had legitimately and I'll tell you about my journey there because that's the early part of my 20s. But I was like, I'm done with everything because I can't go to school because I never took the SATs because I'm screwed. So my dad convenes like this. My dad at the time had gone through a lot of stuff, but he had landed on his feet, and he had started at Toys R Us being like a cashier. And then he had risen up to be like assistant manager. So now he was like assistant manager of Gateway Computer Stores. He was a retail manager is what he did. And he worked with a lot of guys younger than him. And he was probably in his early 40s. My dad had me at 25. He was probably in his early 40s. And these guys were in their late 20s, early 30s. So he convened this like dinner. And he's like, you got to tell Junior here, you know, that he's got to shape up. Or he's not going to amount to anything. I don't know what to do with him. He's not, you know, he doesn't want to go to school. He doesn't want to do this. He's drinking. He's doing that. He's doing this. Craziest revelation. Because when you're a kid, you think you have all the answers, but you don't. And something as simple as what Todd Rosenblum, to this day, my dad's friend, he just pulls me aside and says, hey, just get your ass out of high school. Just graduate. He says, doesn't matter if you take the SATs. He's like, all you got to do is go to community college. You go to community college, they'll take you. You get A's there. You can go to any school you want. You can go to Rutgers. That was the biggest mind-blowing. It sounds silly now to us because we know that was the biggest mind-blowing lifeline I've ever had because I simply did not know that was an option.
Yeah, man. I think that's something like in all of our. I think that's something in my observation along the way that like the thing that all that we really want, whether we're aware of it or not, is somebody to show us the on-ramp.
Yes.
Like we know the highway's there.
Yes.
And we know we're on this fucking service road over here.
And we can drive. We have the skill and perseverance to drive.
Like somebody's got to introduce the concept of what the on-ramp to the highway is to us. Like, oh, get out of high school, go to community college, get A's. Boom. Like knowing that door is open.
Yes.
If you just get to it.
Yes.
It's like, oh.
It was a revelation.
Yeah.
So now, I've gone on this path. I roll in Brookdale Community College. Still have the degree proudly on my wall because to me that's a big accomplishment. I love that school. Now I'm going to Brookdale, and the thing about that is it's Monmouth County Community College. It's not, I'm taking on student loans, but it's not overly expensive or they're not pressuring you right away to find your path. So I start with English, but then you can get credits from anywhere because they're all going to transfer to a school later. So now I'm taking music recording classes. So I'm learning how to actually mix and master on Pro Tools. I know the ins and outs of buses and things that I never would have known. This guy Chad down there taught a lot of us how to do that. Then I'm taking Piano 1 and music theory. But I'm also taking history courses, world history, world civilization. I'm taking English courses. But I'm doing it piecemeal over time. I'm working at a deli counter. My buddy's father owned a deli, working behind his deli counter, and I can make a banging sub to this day, and I can work the grill because of that. I'm working contracting. Neighbors started a company where we would physically, back then you needed to physically run like networking cables through walls and commercial property. So I'm in attics, I'm in behind drywall, we're pulling, and it's just all going on in my early 20s while I'm part-time. I always have in the back pocket that I'm in community college, so I'm gonna have something to fall back on if this whole entertainment pursuit doesn't work out.
Right.
At the time, I'm releasing music, albums, over and over, and I'm going hard. I'm putting posters everywhere, I'm performing everywhere. This is mostly, Neptune, Asbury Park, Freehold, and up to the Amboy, Sayreville, that area. And I start getting in that scene, and a buddy of mine, Billy, he's cool with a family that owns a bunch of clubs. And they're, adult, like gentlemen's clubs. And he says, this is one club that's struggling. They're not doing any business. He says, you're still rapping? I'm like, yeah. Now I had worked, they had this scheme back then, you probably remember, we were promoting clubs. There's this guy, Joey enough at this place. Now it's 35 Club, used to be the Coliseum or something. And he was running these showcases on Sunday nights. And it was, I'll give you a ticket. It's $15, sell it, you keep 5, you give me 10, you can perform. And he's getting all these artists from that area of New Jersey to go up and do their little rap thing, whatever. I remember the first night I hustled, I'm like, I'm gonna get everybody in this place. And I got 70 people coming, 70 tickets. I really went hard with this. And I think that's not just because of the music, that's that personality I told you about. I wanted the attention, wanted the eyes on me. So whatever the platform was, I wanted it. So I sell 70 tickets, and I remember going in to see. Now I didn't care so much about the money as the recognition. That's something I have been a constant struggle for me. So I didn't sell them for $15, sold them for $10. As long as I give him the money, I don't care if I get the money, I just want people to see me. I hand him $700 cash that day, and there must have been 10 other artists there that all handed him cash. And I remember thinking, damn, all he's doing is like, he has a relationship with this club, and now he's making this money. So anyway, when Billy says, this club's struggling, would you want to do like a show there or something? So I go, we hop in his car, we go meet the guy, Antonio's his name. He says, this is struggling down the street. It was called After Dark at the time. It's right in like Lawrence Harbor, like kind of when you could still see New York behind you in that weird part of Monmouth, like by Red Bay. You know, a little tide, they call it the Bay Shore. So I go down there and I look at it, it's empty, there's no one there. He says, you could do a show. I says, I could do a show.
Right.
Or I could do what Joey did. And I could bring all those dudes I met in the circuit to do a show with me, except we're not going to do it the way he did. So what I did was, I charged at the door, it was like $5 at the door, and I let them sell their tickets. But I had this thing where whoever sold the most tickets on a given night, now you get a show, like me. Now you can run a show. You hire all your artists, you take all the money, and I'll help you manage it, and I'll link you up with the club. I don't think I took any money. I said, because we're all going to eat. Now you made me a bunch, now you're going to make a bunch. Like that's how we're going to do it. Because this is about the artists. And the only reason I'm going into that is because that was the beginning of my, identity or ability as an organizer, a show organizer, a vibe organizer. People started to really look forward to my shows. And so my first release party, bro, my boy lived in New Brunswick because he was a Rutgers student. And he had one of those houses that he rents with a bunch of people. Right on Senior Street by the pizza. Now, New Brunswick's a much different place now. I mean, then it was a little more like just off the beaten path. Like, we devised this thing. I found a connect to, they printed CDs. They would make CDs because you had CDs back then with my image on the front, all that. And we got just a stack, a spindle of CDs. And I said, well, we're going to get a keg of beer. We're going to set it up in the basement at Rutgers, New Brunswick, and we're going to say this is a release party. $1 for the album, because the way it worked out was like 50 cents a disc, so it was like $1 is fine, I just want people to have it. $1, you come in, you You go into the basement party. I'm gonna perform. We're gonna spin all kinds of stuff all night, and we're gonna give you a cup, and you could drink all night. So we had people from all over that area, plus New Brunswick, just walking in. And I realized, every time I have something, I have a release party. Every time I do something, I have people, and I'm gonna put people on when I do that, and then they're gonna see how it works, and everybody's gonna get exposure, and everybody's gonna have fun, and they're gonna associate my art and creativity with vibes and fun. And that was, so I really went on a tear where I was running shows, and now different clubs wanted me to come in there because we're struggling. Can you do it? I started booking hard rock shows, like screamo shows, whatever. And I met a lot of really cool, interesting people. And I really went far. And at that point, I found a lawyer. I just mass sending out CDs to agents, and I found somebody in New York on Madison Avenue, Joe Galliano, nice guy. He took me to a couple of labels and stuff, and of course, talking about fitting people in a box. They liked it at first, one or two of them, and then they'd say, okay, well, let's see them. Are we going to market them? And they'd show me. Now, I thought I was confident in my image. I'm like, red hair kid, but I got an old caddy, 1990. I always loved them. My swag now, but it didn't really work at 22 like it works at 40. But I thought it did. But I'm going old school, like Frank Sinatra type vibe, and they're like, but they're looking at it in that era. I think now they're looking at it like, I can't market this kid as like doing this type of music. And something about that I think is relevant later in life. Somebody mentioned to me one time, it's like, I saw your posters, I saw your music, but I never wanted to fuck with you. Because I thought you were just like some suburban kid, white boy, trying to do this culture. And I didn't think it made sense. But later he said, I understand you now. I was never trying to change my element and who I was to fake what I was doing, as opposed to bringing who I was as an addition to something that was already going on. So I was never going to change. Somebody's like, oh, shave your head, get a big silver chain. I'm like, no. I'm going to do it how I am because I'm being authentic. And eventually that worked. Initially people were like, I don't know what to make of you right now. I remember I walked in the first, I had like my friends with me, my brother, we had these like white button downs. Somebody's like, we got the 5 heartbeats over here, just making fun of it. But I was like, but it was fun. It was like, yo, but this is me though. I am that kid that you're saying I am. I am. But I'm still going to do this art form, an element of it. And I think that over time, and we'll get to it like now, that's been an interesting journey. That is, like, I think that authenticity, though, even though while at first it's like, who, what? What? Now I think in that space it's more like, oh yeah, you've always been you. You've never really changed, so you're never bullshitting anybody. I think it was just an interesting time in my life where I was operating in those spaces. Now I'm still going to school. I'm still me. But I'm operating those spaces. I'm in those clubs. I'm the good liaison between the club owners, and then because of that cultural share, whatever. But I'm now developing this grit, this real knowledge of the state, of finances and how to set up good vibes. I'm developing a network of people that know and trust and realize I'm a real dude. Like I'm gonna put you on. If you put me on, we're gonna share in this. And I'm developing a reputation that I think. I remember somebody said to me once, like, oh, you wasted all your time doing this artistic pursuit. It's never gonna, I think that's the biggest crock of shit I've ever heard. Because now looking back, now I'm 8 years into my legal career, which we'll get into, because I think it's a really interesting interplay. I think that's the biggest, farthest thing from the truth. I think those years and that element of me has been completely integral and really beneficial in all aspects of my life, everywhere.
It's funny, I was listening to you earlier, I just want to circle back really quick on this one point. Listening to your trajectory as a musician and performer and producer, and the way you approach bringing people into the space and like creating an audience. And hearing that origin story of like you as a kid, and bringing your like family in front of you just to be like, listen, I'm about to get busy. It's like that through line is so ill to me.
There are through lines,
It's like it's true. It's one of those things where it's like nothing is truer than when there's money for it, and money is not Like money's not the appeal.
Yeah, money's not the appeal. No, it's the intent. Yes,
it still is the same thing it was when you were 7 years old.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And
yes.
like, if you can tap into that, everybody can make money.
Yes, money just flows.
We all make some money.
It's true.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's really, really dope, man. I love that.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a couple things first. One is from your childhood, like from as young as you can remember up to, let's say, graduating high school. 3 musicians or albums that, for whatever reason, resonated with you across that time. Like whether it was like your parents' favorite music that they put you on to, or something you discovered, or like what were kind of like 3 joints or artists?
Well, Nas, Illmatic. I don't even know if it was the content so much. I don't think it was like lyrical content as much as the beats and the way he was able to flow, like his rhymes and the way he went and the jazz. Bro, I just was blown away by that. I kept that in my Walkman. I was just non-stop.
Yeah.
Nirvana, that Nevermind album. Something about his downtroddenness and his just like artistry. And my buddy who went to the Marines, that was his space. That was his vibe more, like that rock space. So I love doing that, you know, just being in there with him on that. And there was this album. So 2 things for my dad. When I first got my car, I rated like his little CD thing, and there was Huey Lewis and the News sports album. There's a song on there, Heart and Soul, and I used to just play the hell out of that track. I wore it out. Because everybody's like the heart of rock and roll, that was the hit. But the Heart and Soul was a hit, like a semi-hit. I just loved it because it was this weird, funky keyboard lace thing that I dug. And then Billy Joel, Glass Houses, which was like his 80s thing, but I understood what was going on in that. It was like back then, you know, albums were a snippet of somebody's life, which is how I've loved. I think we've lost that somewhat in the singles game. Albums were a snippet of an artist's life. In Glass Houses, I came to understand as I was vibing with it in my late teens, early 20s, was a man who was in his probably late 20s, early 30s, who's going out drinking, dating all these different women, getting his heart broken, breaking other people's hearts, doing irresponsible stuff. But the Glass Houses was like, you know, don't throw the stone at the glass house, bro. Like, you're going through it. And it was such a collection of Billy Joel's life at that time. And you know, I growing up in Freehold, New Jersey, like I love Springsteen and certain things about Springsteen, but the way that that area was when I was a kid versus when Springsteen was a kid, Billy Joel's from Long Island and it was more developed. By the time the Monmouth County suburbs, when I was a kid, it was more like Long Island than it was when Springsteen back in the day was like super agrarian, industrial, whatever. So I kind of related a lot to what Billy Joel was saying. But those are like specific albums. I mean, there was a lot of different artists that I vibe with. The first album I ever got was like the Beatles album. Like a Beatles greatest hits and like Beach Boys. And my parents got me a Walkman and they're like, well, what can you listen to that were cool? And I later learned like Beach Boys had so much doo-wop energy and stuff in there. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. I kind of got into things for that reason. But yeah, those things, like in that era, I don't know why. And it's an interesting collection, but that's what I was vibing to. Those different songs, those different things.
Yeah, I think it's so ill that like there's certain albums and songs. Go ahead.
There's one more. Because I think, and I was just showing my girl yesterday, and I used to get not made fun of, but people was like, yo, you in this jazz stuff, get off it. Like Guru did this album called Jasmine Tags. And bro, because you know I would scour the internet, because back then you couldn't just go, I'd have this outlet of people who knew this stuff. You have to scour, and after it's like jazz rap, jazz this. Like, you know, tried, like I discovered the low end theory later. But like, that Jasmine Tags, because there were real artists that he was playing, like Sounds of the City got people. Like, bro, that, like, because now I started to say, oh no, there's this whole subgenre that I'm gonna delve into and find, and so that it was a lot of things, but those albums, like, but if you know those top 4, like they were in my Walkman nonstop. But those other things, when I started delving, you know, it had a big influence on me. It just was comfort too.
Yeah, for sure. Like this, it's so bugged out, especially like when you're younger and you don't know what the fuck you are. You know what I mean? Or what this moment is. And like you could discover an album or an artist or just a song that like for whatever reason resonates so deeply with you, and you just play it over and over and over again. Like, and you think it's just I like it or I get it, and it's like, there's so much more going on
So much more.
with it than that. But like the fact that you discover it at all is fantastic.
Yes.
You know what I mean? All right, so dope albums, dope music. I want to also ask you. You mentioned the guy that was at the school, teacher, counselor, what have you. Two things. One, can you shout out? And you have already, but can you shout out 5 people who, for whatever reason, chose you as a mentee, or chose you to hold space for, or chose you to listen to, or to.
Yeah, I think Mr. Castellucci, he later became a lawyer. We reconnected years later. He really knew to give me the floor, so to speak, to talk about certain poems, analyzing certain books, things. He saw that in me, and he would take me aside too and talk about even just English, and that made me feel like valued as somebody who could think, you know, and that was big. I think, you know, later on I met people like in law school and things, but not so early in that age that kind of gave me that space as well and noticed something in me, you know, going through law stuff. But I want to get that when we go into law stuff. But I really think he was a big part of that. I think there was a dude that I still am cool with, Bobby Curls, and he would probably say that I took him under my wing to show him the ropes of that whole, you know, the way I had the shows and things set up. But he was somebody who was supremely talented in that music that we were in.
Yeah.
And he recognized very quickly like who I was, because he's a real one too, and I still see him all the time.
Right.
And Jared was his friend, J.I. Like they quickly realized like this is a good dude. Like, and we're on your same level, like creative, not just creatively, but as a person.
Yeah.
And kind of, you know, I don't know, gave me that like solid friendship where people, of course, in those type of spaces, everybody's coming in like a vulture, trying to get a piece of this action, that action, trying to go up behind your back and get this club to go with you and all that snake stuff. They never, like I had a solid group of people in them. Steve Squires, another one. My friend, you know, these are just people that were more like on the level with me like that. I think I've had mentors, like, you know, my father, just in general, just he never really operated in the spaces I operated. It still doesn't always all the time, but his solid, just good way of living, like, you know, what he gave up for his kids, the work he put in, even just like I said, Todd Roosevelt, the guy who told me about community college, that was because my father had called that meeting. He cared enough. He might not have at the time knew how to reach me, and I didn't know how to reach him, but he cared enough to assemble a group of guys, like one of these guys is going to be able to help this young man, because I don't quite know how to get through to him right now. And there was some beef with my grandfather and him when I was a little younger, but my grandfather came back into my life like for my whole teens. And was he could be a difficult guy sometimes, but he was such a driving force. Like at that time is when I really did start to understand jazz music and things. And this was a dude who had vinyls of Coltrane albums and Love Supreme. Showed me WBGO. Before I even really came to Newark, showed me WBGO. And so, you know, I think it's more of a collective of these different aspects of people that gave me the guidance I needed. And sometimes I think 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have had this mentality that, well, I didn't even have anybody put me on. I kind of fought through it. But when you reflect, I had a lot of people put me on, and a lot of people do different things for me. And even in my legal career, you know, that's been a process. But this guy, and I want to get into that kind of story, but Mark Festa, who put me on with my first job because I interned for him and wrote such a good picture. Tracy Thompson, who was the insurance fraud prosecutor for the AG's office, who gave me a job recently, who was believed in my vision, and I got a lot accomplished there before she left. My friend Amari Reed, who was my buddy in law school, then put me onto a job. So there's been a lot of people, and no one does anything on their own, and so everything I've done has a myriad of mentors and contributors in different aspects, because I'm so all over the place. In some ways, you needed all those different aspects of meeting that, you know.
Yeah, man. You know, I love the story about your dad convening that group and that meeting. And was it like, was it like dinner somewhere?
It was
or?
dinner at his house. Because he cooks. My dad likes to cook. Like you said about time, he likes to cook. So he invited them over for dinner. He cooked a bunch of stuff, and he said, "Talk to him, will you?"
That's so
literally what he said.
Fantastic, bro. It's so fantastic for like so many reasons. Like you said, myriad. Like one, for your dad to convene a group of people who he trusted to hear quote unquote bad news. That like Larry's in trouble. Larry's uncertain. Larry's wild. Larry's not under control of himself or me.
Yes.
Right? So like the amount of trust that he had in those group of guys and in his own like vulnerability in that moment to like tell a group of guys in front of you, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like to let you be witness to that.
Yes.
Right? And then for it not to become an intimidation session on Larry of like, you better.
It wasn't.
We'll all fuck you up. It's like,
yes. No. Yes. You're right.
I mean?
You're
it's
right.
Like, no, we'll all show you a way.
Yes.
We'll all let you know that. You know what I mean?
Yes. And speaking of this too, even while you mentioned that, it's kind of coming. It's interesting how we orient ourselves in society. Like I'm thinking that when you say mentor, the first thing I think of too is like men. There's Tracy Thompson stuff, but. I told you my mother was like very harping me reading and things like that, which is a huge impact on my life. But my aunt, her sister, she had more means when I was young than my parents had. She bought me all this music I'm talking about for those 10 years. She bought me a keyboard.
Right.
And it was a nice one. And I banged that thing. Like that thing is missing keys. It's gone now. For 15 years, she bought it. And she took us to plays in the city.
Yeah.
She exposed us to art. And she lived in Jersey City my whole life. So she exposed me even to like different areas of the state. And that had a lasting impact. And I think we have a tendency to think right away. And men are important in men's lives, of course. But there's also women that play aspects in that too. And profound ones. But it's interesting to reflect on the fact that like, I had like, but that was also a big impact.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, because like men, there's something to be said, and like, you know, especially if you are an alpha or just self-possessed. If you're not somebody who will put on the chain because somebody who represents opportunity told you to.
Right.
It's like you're self-possessed, right? And for men, there is always an aspect of competition, and not unhealthy competition. There's always an aspect of, I'm going to show you what manhood can look like. You know what I mean? Now, manhood can look like putting your arm around a kid and saying, hey, let me show you, let me put you on. It can look like being vulnerable in front of a kid. It can look like giving a kid an opportunity. Right? I really, this is an aspect of the conversation that I like the most. I like the conversation around mentors because in my experience, it was like really evident to me early that the people who, for whatever reason, chose me didn't choose me because of anything I did to deserve being chosen. Like, there wasn't anything reciprocal in the relationship where it's like, they put me onto this and then they get something.
No, right, yes. No, 100%,
they get something out of it, but it's not that I give it to them. The way they give it to me. You know what I mean? And like to see that, to be able to see that in so many people. It's like, oh shit, maybe I'm set up for success. If I would only let myself see my story through an arc that lands in success or passes through success even. Maybe I would see the setup better, and maybe I would embody the identity better of like, oh, I'm supposed to be wherever my dreams are leading me to. Because look at all of these people who chose to further me in whatever I said my thing was, or whatever my struggle was at the time.
So many.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about you as a lawyer.
Yeah, I want to.
How does that even start?
So now I had gone through community college. Yeah.
Let's do a check before.
Yeah. This is gonna be.
Yeah.
And it's gonna tie in, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love this, by the way, bro. I appreciate this this space.
Oh,
I think
man.
this is gonna go a long way, just in general. Like share who the heck I am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I really love this space. I love the conversation that you and I are having.
No, me too. Cause it's like
it's profound, bro.
it is.
I'm realizing shit that we're talking about that I didn't realize. Like I'm real, like the mentorship. I'm realizing this shit.
Yeah.
I'm doing self-reflection on this couch.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Me too.
This is yes, this is great. This is live. You are witnessing. You are witnessing us literally do this self-reflection.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So lawyer.
So how do you start off?
So now remember, I have this community college in my back pocket.
Right.
And I'm a lot of start and stops, philosophy, this, that.
Mm-hmm.
I take a poli-sci course, political science. I've always been interested, so I thought, in politics, i.e. the debates, the issues, things like that. Political science, it's more like a historical political science course. We're starting to understand the different trajectories of different ideologies, and I'm like really taken by it.
Yeah.
So I started taking more and more poli-sci courses, and in community college still.
Right.
I'm working behind the deli counter. I'm doing all these things, and I'm like, okay, I didn't get signed to a record deal, and you start to reach a certain age. You're approaching your late 20s, and your pizzazz in the clubs and things isn't what it used to be. So I'm not making. I would make good money when I was doing those shows consistently. Right. It's fizzling out. People are starting to move on. They're not going to come out all the time, and I always had I like to think I had a knack for seeing just a tad bit early that I got to make a move. And I see, this is, whatever I'm doing, think I'm going to be, a club owner or a musician, whatever I'm going to be, that's not looking like it's coming to fruition. I had majored for a little bit in audio production, because I'm like, maybe I'll be behind the boards at a radio station or something. Then I realized, look, if I'm going to make it in any kind of recording or anything, it's going to be on the side. It's going to be what's going to pay my bills now.
Yeah.
And now this is another thing that there's one thread that we went through from early, and there's other threads.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I would go to my grandmother's house as a little kid, she would let me stay up really late. I had a TV in my room. I was in bed early at my parents' house. My grandma's house, my mother's mother, I would have there was a separate guest room, and my brother and I would sleep in there, and there was a TV, this is the early 90s, it was an old TV, with only 13 channels or whatever. What we play every night, all the time on rerun, I don't know why, it was Law and Order, the old one. I don't know why I was obsessed with it, but I was. I loved that music, and it was young then, it was 89, 91. I would stay up watching that show all night. And so, when I would think about, what do you see yourself as? Who do you see yourself as? I always thought I was, verbally gifted. I could speak. I liked the attention. I liked the command of presence. So in the back of my mind, I guess, when you would ask me, okay, I know what your dreams are. It's music, entertaining. But what's your, being, my mother was like, you could be a writer, and I think we'll talk about that. But it was like, what would you do career, like firefighter, police officer, nurse, doctor, lawyer would always pop up because of those things. But it was a vague understanding of what a lawyer even was. So I'm nearing the end of this run in my 20s, and my credits are piling up at community college. They're close to getting an associate's degree, and I'm nearing 27. No, I'm nearing 25, I guess. And I talked to my friend's brother who owns this deli I'm working at. I'm behind the deli, and I remember to this day. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm majoring in this. I like poli-sci, I like that. And I don't know. I gotta find a career, but I want something that's gonna pay the bills. And I've been working now, landscaping, deli counter, construction, and I'm thinking, I don't want to do this forever. I want to be the guys that are coming in for lunch in suits. Instead of the guys making sense. Not that I don't like making it, but it's it's just not, I don't want to do this forever. So I'm talking to him, and he says, well, why don't you, my friend of mine did it, when you major in poli-sci, minor in history, you can go to law school that way. Law school is, you don't need any specific major. You can be a lawyer, try that. And I thought to myself, that sounds, after a lot of pondering, I think I could do that. I think it sounds like a solid career choice. So I finished my credits at community college. That next semester that we're getting there, I bundled up, get my associate's degree, apply to Rutgers, get into Rutgers Newark, undergrad. I say I want to major in poli-sci at Rutgers Newark. That's when I kind of come to Newark. I start coming to Newark a lot. And I had been here at NJ Performing Arts Center. And my grandfather always got the best bread here, and this, that, so I feel like being here a lot, not so much. So this was 2008, and I would come a lot more often. I would go to school, and I'm getting ready to apply. The goal was law school. So I figured figured out myself. I had to take the LSAT course. My dad got me a course though to take the LSAT, which I took at Rutgers, New Brunswick. That was credit to him, and that's something to say too.
Yep.
I took everything was on loans, but when I needed a book or I needed something or I was behind on it, my dad would help me. He didn't have the means per se, but he found the means, which was powerful too. Even though that is dead, I have it. But so now I'm approaching the LSAT. I scored in the 97th percentile at the LSAT score for entry to law school. I mean, my mind works that way. So it's interesting. It's this this artistic pursuit, and I am a creative person, expressive person that way. But I have this other element of me that again was developed since a young age, reading and writing. My logical prowess, like my ability to analyze texts and things is good. I did well in the test. So now I can go to some different schools, but I took the February LSAT because now my schedule's almost, I'm not a traditional student anymore. So I graduated like December, so now I'm in a rush to get into law school because now I'm nearing 27.
Right.
And I said to myself, well, by the time I turn 30, I want to have a career started. So if I go to school now, I'll be 3 years, I will be an attorney by age 30. And for some reason that was an important benchmark to me. And I enjoyed my 20s, I'm like, it's time to turn the page. So there were only a certain number of schools you could get into when you apply late in February anyway, but I had kind of made up my mind, being here, that I wanted to go to Rutgers Newark Law School too. And I think it was a mix of like Jersey pride. It doesn't matter where you're from in Jersey, and some people might disagree. We don't understand what I'm going to say, and that's their problem. This is the beating heart of the state of New Jersey, the city of Newark. And so my Jersey pride have always been. Now my family had come from New York. My father was born in East New York, Brooklyn. My mother was born in Brooklyn. They were all immigrants, came to New York, most of them, and then we moved there. But I had grown up. I was born in Jersey and raised in Jersey, and we were always there. My parents were since they were young. And this was the beating heart. And the city. I mean, there was so much to love about it, and so many people I met that were great, and I saw the issues too, like there's development. What issues does that bring? What issues does the non-development bring? What issues has this place gone through for 30 years that people outside have talked about it? So anyway, I want to stay here. And I want to go to Rutgers, New York. I got into George Washington down in DC, pretty high, but didn't place very well in North Jersey, which is where I went to live and practice. Notre Dame I didn't get into. Was too late. So basically, like if I set a goal, if I get into a top 10 law school that I can't turn down, I'll go. Anything else, I'm going to Rutgers. That's it. Very happy I went there because it's an excellent education. So I wind up going to Rutgers Law School. I start there, and I still don't know what path I want to take in law. I have no idea. I like civil law, entertainment law. I got scholarships because my test scores were good. So it saved me money. It wasn't full scholarships at the end of the day, but it saved me money. So I'm going and I'm working, and I start to learn about different aspects of law. And one aspect was criminal law. And I think this is where it gets interesting for people because of my background, the kind of kid I was, the kind of young man I was. And there's this, criminal law is interesting because I've always been fascinated with like detective work, investigative work, justice, going to court. And a lot of lawyers I found out don't even go to court, but criminal lawyers are always in court. So now I'm really interested in like criminal law. I'm very good at it, and I'm like, because it's also combining this detective work, this investigative work, this whole other element. So I get into it, and one thing I notice that they're telling me, and whether this, whether it's always done in practice or not, is another question. But the defense attorneys are zealous advocates for their clients. Like you get a client, and that's who you represent, and you got to represent that client at all costs, like which is a noble thing to do. But that client is front and center no matter what. On the prosecution side, you have to look at all elements of justice, meaning, did the person do it? If they did do it, what's the right remedy? Like, is it always punitive? Do they need to be punitive, or they need to be away from society, or do they need rehabilitation? Do they need diversionary programs? The community, the victim. Who's the victim? What do they need? What do they want? Do they want to participate? What interest do the people of New Jersey, the city of Newark, what interest do they have in what happens here? And are people feeling heard by the people in this particular office or system? Do people feel that it's accessible and working for them? And the answer is a resounding no. I think it still is in some ways, which is unfortunate. But I don't know what it was with me. I don't know why I was always trying to go against the grain, and I don't know what it is, but I think, this is my idealistic younger law school self. Well, I'm going to make this huge impact, and if I go into a prosecutor's office, which people would never expect from me, when I first told my friend, you're going to be, probably be a defense attorney.
Right.
I can make this impact,
right?
And and I can have this wide breadth of considerations as opposed to just representing the client. I can address community concerns. I can help people. I can do all these things.
Yeah.
And so I decide I'm going to intern. I intern at Monmouth County. I intern so now I've realized, and I tell kids this all the time. I speak to them. Whatever you want to do, you better start interning. You better do it. The only way to make a resume, I have no lawyers in my family.
Right.
I have nothing else.
Right.
The only way I can make a resume and a name for myself in a certain profession is to intern, because now I'm building a resume without pay that I wouldn't have never had.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden when I go for the real job, I have this huge resume that no one else has or people don't have. So I interned there. I interned at Essex, Newark Municipal, in the heat and like the fan going, the air conditioning doesn't work on Green Street.
Right.
And I get to know Sherry, Sherry and Herb Washington, who's now the current municipal prosecutor, I was their intern.
Yeah.
Sherry Stembridge, who I met her at NYU. There's an NYU job fair that Rutgers says.
Okay.
I walk into, I'm in New York City, and one of the first people there is Sherry Stembridge. She's hiring for Newark Municipal Prosecutor. I sat with her and I was like, Sherry, I want this for this reason. I got a call the next day.
Yeah.
Sherry put me on.
Yeah.
And Herb put me on. And then I was getting Herb files running up and down the stairs.
Right.
And now he's the municipal prosecutor,
Right.
but he was just a line municipal prosecutor at the time.
Yeah.
They gave me so much time of theirs after work, lunch. They gave me so much wisdom. They let me do traffic trials. They gave me so much experience. I wouldn't have had that. Flew with me.
What are traffic trials?
Like, I got a ticket and I want to contest it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. The ones that they were wrong, like, I got a ticket for this or that. Jaywalking, going the wrong way, speeding, reckless driving, they can go to trial.
Yeah.
But it's not like a jury like you have here. It's just like it's in front of the judge.
Yeah.
So I got to do that as a law student. I got to
represent the state.
The state in those, and they are sitting there next to me, and I'm like, well, cross-examining. It's not a lot of stakes, so it's like whatever. But they let me try like 5 of them. So most people aren't doing that.
All right, I'm gonna interrupt.
Yes.
Because I can't.
Yes.
I can't help.
Yes.
Man, all I'm hearing, I'm hearing you talk about, arguing, traffic trials. Even working in the office with, this prosecutor or that person, what have you. And I'm remembering the story of you painting, drawing a picture and writing in the scribbles of the words.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about you in a traffic trial. It's like both sides are trying to tell a story of what happened.
Yes.
Right? And it's like, all right, let me paint a picture for you.
Yes.
Yes. This is the time of day, this blah, 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 they parked here, the sign is here, da, da, da,
yes.
right? Or jaywalking or whatever the thing is. And there isn't a camera, right? If there's a camera, that's a different
No, there's no
conversation
camera.
altogether.
No.
There's no camera. We're back to, I'm going to paint a picture, and that side's going to paint a picture.
Yes.
And you've been painting pictures for a long time.
Yes, bro. From as early as I can remember. Yeah.
Man, I love this stuff.
Yeah. So,
please,
So now I'm going to do this traffic trial.
Yeah.
So now the first thing you try to do when you get out of law school, if you want to work in this state and you want to work in those, like a prosecutor's office or something, you have to work for a judge. You have to get a clerkship. It's a 1-year thing. Right out of law school, it's almost like I compare it to like a medical school residency. Yeah. You get out, you work for a judge for a year. You learn the system, all that. Most people who get those jobs, I wouldn't say most. I'd say a lot of people get those jobs. They know the judge one way or the other. Yeah. I didn't know any judges.
Right.
The ones my family would maybe know this distant person. I never got a job. So it's now spring of graduation year from law school. I don't have a clerkship locked up, which is going to be hard for me to get a job because the prosecutor's office like to hire from the clerkship ranks, not from law school. So while everybody else in the spring, not everybody else, but a lot of people are getting ready for the bar, and that's a tough thing this summer. So I knew I had to do that. But that spring, there was an internship application open for Passaic County Prosecutor's Office in Patterson. And it was for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
But I put in a resume anyway with all the internships I did in all the other offices, and I put on the application, is there any possibility I can possibly just do this for the spring? Because I'm like, maybe I can find a job that, like, one more internship to see if there's any possible way that leads to any job. Guy calls me up next day. His name was Mark Festa, and he worked in the appellate division of Passaic, so that's way more written, intensive. And he says, how many months you got? You want to do like what? Like do it till June? Because then you got to study for the bar. I said, yeah. Can I do that? He said, yeah. He said, what? How many days? I said, I could do 1 day a week, but I'll work from home. I'll write. He's like, well, we pretty much do like appeals from criminal cases to the appellate division. I just need you to write some briefs. I said, okay, sure. I go in there, and the first brief I write is some kind of like ineffective assistance in counsel thing, and I gave it my all. I mean, I really wrote it. I'm exceptionally well. When you give something your all, and you know when it's good. Like, you can be objective as an artist. Even my photos I take or my songs, I know when it's good. I know when it's all right. This was good. And I give it to him, and he's like, he's impressed. He's like, wow. He's like, I wouldn't have written something like that in law school. Like, damn, damn.
Right.
He spends a lot of time on Fridays telling me stories, talking about life. And he's also, though, every Friday he buys me lunch. Every Friday as an intern. I mean, I never had another. Every Friday he buys me lunch. Nothing crazy, but to me it was crazy because it's like I can, because he's not paying. Every Friday he buys me. And then what he does is there's one judge, Judge Kioka, Passaic County. He's looking for a law. He hasn't hired yet for some reason. And this guy Mark knows him because he appears in his court all the time.
Right.
And I will tell you, every Friday for a month, no exaggeration, he would print out my resume, print out the brief I wrote, and walk up to the judge's office and give it to him. Every Friday for 4 weeks until he said, get the job yet? Get the job, I'm going up again. I'm going up again. Give me your resume again. 4 weeks. Finally, the judge interviews me. The judge is funny. Like, we have a great relationship with the judge, and I wound up working for him. This guy Frank is his clerk, and we go in there, and he's looking. He's like, "All right, so you played ball in high school varsity?" I'm like, "No, freshman." He's like, "Freshman." He's like, "Frank, I thought you were giving me somebody good." This guy, he wanted to see if he could break my balls. He could. I laughed. He winds up hiring me. It was a criminal clerkship, but then he gets transferred to civil early on. So now I'm doing like litigation, tort litigation, contract disputes, personal injury. I actually loved it. I thought it made it intellectually stimulating as all hell, which actually leads me to the fact that I think sometime in the near future there might be a career change where I'm going into different, just because you have this license to practice all kinds of law, why pitch books. But anyway, went well. I wanted to go to Essex, so I could have gone. I won't say I didn't get an official offer, but there were paths. Maybe Mom, maybe Passaic. I wanted to go be in Essex because I had a belief, still do, that if you're going to do a job like that, law enforcement, prosecutor, whatever, you should probably do it in a place where you actually live. I just think that, put it that way, I think I value highly you should live where you work. Because if you don't know, if you're not a member of the community you serve, I just think there's issues with that.
Are you referring like generally to public service work? Like
I think it's applicable beyond that, but I think public service work, 100%.
Like if you represent these people somehow, in the state or
or even no matter what it is, it could be in state, it could be a nonprofit entity. If your job, if you're saying that your position is for the goodwill of a community and for the benefit of a community, I think it's a heck of a lot more. Forget about perception, which also matters. How about just the actuality of it? Like you want to, I think, you should be a member of the place you're advocating for. And so I went into Essex, and that was a whirlwind. And I won't get into every single detail, but I will say that I was there for 5 years here in Newark, Essex County Prosecutor's Office. And I have seen one time this guy, he was not supposed to be at his house. And this was funny. Like this is some of the thing that I'm sick that day, out of work, like sick as a dog. So I go into the Walgreens on Ferry Street. See him, You're not supposed to be at his house.
Right.
And I see him, we meet eyes, and he just
Right.
looked at I didn't say anything.
Right.
Because whatever,
Right.
he's not doing anything.
Right.
You know, and then I've seen victims, I'm walking across the street, hey, Mr. Krayn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this guy, he had got his teeth knocked out by a cab driver. Some crazy dispute. The guy hit him with a glass pot, like a hard one. But the guy had never been in trouble previously.
Good.
This guy just wanted his teeth fixed. It was a lot of dental bills.
Mm-hmm.
So what we worked out was like the guy emptied his savings account that he had, the perpetrator emptied his savings account with his wife, pled guilty, so he got an official apology, wrote him a check. He got his teeth fixed. He didn't have to do any jail time.
Wow.
And the victim was like, hey, Mr. Krayn, good to see you.
Yeah.
Whatever. I've seen jurors, I've seen victims, defendants out here, and I value that.
Yeah.
They're like, are you scared? I'm like, no, I'm not scared, because I remember I was sitting in chambers one time, and public defender that I'd gone up against a lot, I had a very good relationship with the public defenders there, Max and Amanda Savage, excellent people, excellent attorneys.
Yeah.
She looked at me one time, and the judge was like, oh, you live here, aren't you scared of somebody, run into somebody to get prosecutor? And she looked at me, she just goes like, yeah, but you don't have that reputation where everybody's going to do anything to you. Because I'm not. My first trial was a domestic violence person who held a woman for a day with her 3 small children at knife point, latex gloves, severe murder, traumatic. It was a 3-day trial. He's still serving time for that, because now the kids get to grow up. By the time he gets out, they're grown men now, and that's important. But also, a guy hugged me in open court because he got a gun charge. Because in this state, if you have a handgun outside, that's one thing. But you can always have a handgun in your house, no matter where it came from. That's the Constitution. You can't get prosecuted for having a handgun in your house, even if you didn't buy it. Right? Maybe for possession of stolen property.
Right.
But he had an assault weapon, so he's getting prosecuted. I'm looking at this guy's record. He's like 40-something years old. He's no prior except pot as a kid. I'm like, what happened here? And his lawyer tells me, you know, that's one thing too. In these jobs, you have to give people the time of day.
Yeah.
If you develop a skin where you're not listening to people coming in and talking to you, and you're not willing to have an open mind, you're not doing your job. So he comes to me and he says, you won't believe this, but he had the gun because his sister was recently murdered. Where the bullet went through the wall, hit the neighbor's like VCR. So she was upset. Didn't hit anything. He tried to lie about it, the cops not coming. He was cleaning his gun. Got the gun from a friend because his sister was recently murdered, and her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, was part of some kind of group that was gang, whatever. They were knocking on his mother's door, and it seemed like they were trying to intimidate her. He got the gun because he was scared and got through the wall. So I said, okay, we'll get to that. If somebody was murdered, I would know. So I talked to the homicide division. Sure enough, his sister was murdered. Maybe a week or 2 before that. Sure enough, the suspect was. He wasn't lying.
Right.
And I remember you're allowed to talk to defendants if their lawyers present. They don't, you can say no, but I would take guys out routine. You know, bro, I can help you with this or that, or what's going on. I remember speaking to him, and he's like, can you not call my immediate supervisor? Because he's kind of a jerk. If you call my boss, like, you can clear that I'm a good employee. Called him, he was. And we got him, so there's a law in New Jersey, the Graves Act. If you get any kind of gun charge, it's a mandatory minimum to prison, let alone PTI, pretrial intervention. You need complete PTI, pretrial intervention, you don't have any record.
Right.
We got him PTI on that gun, which is like, and he hugged me in open court, because this dude's not gonna have any record.
Right.
There was another one where somebody was carjacked and the police thought it was false reports. Like he was lying, charged him with the false reports and the gun, and he had a private attorney. He refused to plead guilty. He's like, I'm not guilty.
Right.
Finally got the public defender. Public defender's looking at it, and he calls me. He's like, I gotta look at this video. This guy's innocent. He was carjacked. If you look at this timestamp, you see the other guy. It's just hard to see. And like, sure enough, we dismissed that.
Right.
There's a lot of good that was done too, on both sides of that spectrum, and so. You know, I'm proud of those things in the way that worked out. You know, there's you know, there's other cases. There was a guy. So, for instance, this is a simple bureaucratic thing that happens. I think a lot. That because I understand what's going on, I was able to help somebody. So we would get these probation violations. So what it was is every 4 Fridays or something, it's probation day. It's like people who have been caught up in probation violations. They'll give just whoever prosecutor's there, whatever public defender's there, the list of names, the list of like what happened, and you either move to say, well, you violated, you got to go in, or you violated, whatever it was. Somebody had been on probation for like drugs, selling drugs. There's very few, contrary to popular belief, people in jail out of the counties like this, like busy counties, for possessing drugs. More selling. Yeah. So he's in for that. He's not in. He's on probation. Now he's in because he's awaiting, because what happened was, he was on probation, trying to better himself. So he keeps trying to call his probation officer to see if he can get permission to go to Connecticut, because he wants to go get his CDL, like his truck license. Yeah. But the only school that offers financial aid to do that is in Connecticut. That has accepted it. He can't do it in Jersey. The bureaucracy and how it goes sometimes, he can't get a definitive answer from probation as to whether he can get permission, what paperwork he needs to go to Connecticut. So eventually he gets sick of it. He just goes to Connecticut, gets a job, driving a truck, gets engaged, living his life. 2 years go by, driving a truck through New Jersey, the truck gets lit up for whatever reason, gets pulled over, you have a warrant. Lock him up right there. The truck that the company owns left on the side, they gotta come get it. They don't. His lawyer comes in, he's like, you won't believe, this is the story. Told me the story. Now the defense attorney is supposed to call the employer and give me the proof. We'll get proof that he's a good employee, whatever, we'll figure it out. The company doesn't want to talk to the defense. Well, we don't want to talk. He got locked up, his truck's on the side of the road. We don't want to deal with whatever it is, we're done. I said, and I could have at that point, I'm not saying I'm some hero, but this is just the job, and you should do the job with effort. And it's not just to be punitive and lock people up, it's a job to serve the community. So I said, I'll call the employer. So I get on the phone in the back, I'll never forget it, because the company's based in like Georgia or something. So I get on the phone, I'm like, hey, how you doing? Is this so-and-so? Yeah, my name's Larry, I'm a prosecutor in Newark, New Jersey. And he's like, slow down now, brother. I'm from Georgia, you're going to have to slow down. Where are you from? No, I'm a prosecutor here. I said, just want to know what kind of employee. He's like, he's a great employee. Right. I don't know what happened. I said, don't worry about that. It's just some stuff that's going up here, some nonsense. If he gets out today, will he have his job in 2 days that he's coming home? Well, he's a damn good employee, and if he gets out today, I'd love to have him back. So, fine, he's got his job back. Meanwhile, understandable, but his fiance's outside screaming at anybody who will listen about me, the system's corrupt, this and that. Understand her frustration, but I'm not. Right. So now we go into court and say, Judge, he's got his job, he's got this. Not only should we just transfer to Connecticut, just dismiss his probation. He hasn't been in trouble for 2 years, he's working, just get it off his back. So we dismissed the probation, we let him out, and we got him back to his fiance and his job that day. I mean, that's the type of stuff that I was able to accomplish too. Yes, and I had to try and I locked somebody up. And I've locked a bunch of people, violent offenders and people that repeated offenders. They've gone to jail. There's consequences for that. I do think in our society there's this tug and pull between all out law and order, lock everybody up, or all law enforcement is just corrupt from its inception and it can't work. And I think and just a quick point, and then I want you to, this whole artist, this whole expressive person who's a active member, who's in some ways an activist who likes to spread wealth, who likes to build, empower people. Like, well, you go into this thing that the perception is artists don't mess with prosecutors, creatives don't do that, liberal thinkers don't do the misfits. I think there is something to be said for, well, somebody's got to do that job. And would you rather somebody like me who actually cares about it and is going to do the right thing, is that creative misfit, whatever, or somebody who is completely bland, has no perception. So I think it does meld. I think it's sometimes hard for people to put me in a category, but that's my spiel on that. I mean, that's why I think it does kind of meld with me, even though I think at times people are confused. I don't think you need to be, like you said with the books and then painting the picture. I think the creativity goes hand in hand with it. I think the community participant goes hand in hand with it, but I think sometimes it's hard at first glance to say, who is this guy?
Yeah, because you figure, everything is a matter of association. So it's like if you've never seen a Larry before, what are you associating him with? Yes. You know what I mean? And in terms of like as a prosecutor, especially, somebody that works like, AG or DA or like any of those, there is the professional ambition aspect that is playing into a lot of the prosecutors' like approach to law. Like it's not even a matter of law and order or or anything about the punitive capacity. It's about what will look sterling on my resume.
Right. And that's,
You know what
I
I
think
mean?
that's a problem.
It's an incredible problem
Yeah.
because, like, no, you can't quantify a singular individual's ambition.
Right.
And you can't fathom the scale of the system either.
Right.
And, like, just how interwoven all of this shit is, and what the incentives are along the way for whoever.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, like, there's so much of it that's just beyond the defendant.
Yes.
Or the defendant's fiance.
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
or whoever,
Yes.
you know what I mean? And they've never seen a ladder before.
Yeah.
Like,
And
in that role or outside that role.
Yes.
Never seen a ladder before.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, like, there's so much to be taken into consideration, and I think that, to your point, it does change the conversation completely when someone like you is in a position like that. Because what we hear most times is, and when it comes to positions like that being activated the way you do, is we hear it from the spook who sat by the door, the person who subverted and, like, made themselves invisible so they could get in and learn the ways and then ultimately flip this whole thing over. And it's like, that's a way.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That is a way.
Mm-hmm.
It would. Another way is somebody who doesn't have to make themselves invisible. In fact, another way is someone who refuses to make themselves any more translucent than they are. Somebody who walks in opaque in their artistry, in their career, in their family, in their community. Like, that opaqueness allows some people to occupy the role and do the work in a way that is so rare, if ever seen. It's like I'm gonna suspect this. There aren't a lot of people up the chain that you can tell your plays to along the way, and they still remain the same play.
Right.
Yeah, because you got to deal with their ambitions too. And their
I know,
intentions.
and that's yes.
So,
Yes.
like, a lot of stuff you got to keep.
Yes.
Like, all right, I can pick.
Yes.
Where, like, you know what I mean? And those times, it's like, we're not going to tell everybody in the office.
Right.
What
No, of course not.
Right. And you can't anywhere. It's like, it's not
Right.
just in law. It's not just in justice. It's like, you can't do that in the football locker room.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that anywhere. And you can't do that in the kitchen.
No, you're
You
right.
can't tell everybody
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it still succeed. Because everybody's got their, they think the sauce should be made this way.
And I think it's, to that point, it's been a long journey for me. When I first came out and into that profession, I didn't talk about my artistry as much.
Yeah.
I wasn't invisible, but I sure as hell wasn't everything about it.
For sure.
I remember the first day somebody found like an old mixtape. I knew it was only a matter of time. And it's buzzing around the office. And it's like, and I had two paths. I can, if you act like it's something you don't want people to know, or like it's bothering you, that people are going to keep at it, and it's going to be a negative. You own it and embrace it. It's going to be possible. First thing I did, first person I looked at, they came. I remember they're like, "Oh, I looked at them and said, yeah, isn't that dope? It's cool, right?
Yeah.
Check it out."
Yeah.
And that's how I approached it. They listened, and when they listened, even in the office, they all they couldn't say anything because it was good and it was authentic and it was like, yeah, I get it. I already kind of knew you in a way. Now this makes more sense.
Right.
And it's been a long journey.
Yeah.
To be totally myself in those spaces, and I think now I've arrived at in the career side, I'm totally myself. And then people know, because people in the neighborhood know me, what I do, but in the art side now, it's another introduction to explain, this is who I am, because now I'm more active artistically now than I had been for a few years, because I kind of put it away a little.
Right.
And now to reemerge, somebody like you knew, because we're friends and you're artistic, so we have had these conversations. But not everybody knows every intricacy of now I'm emerging again in this artistic spaces to say, I'm not here in that capacity, and even though I am, it's not a bad thing. I'm just an expressive person who's sharing who's and I embrace all perspectives. That's the other thing I think that's important, and I think it goes both for professionals and artists.
For sure.
You take an oath or assume a position, your duty is to execute that position, not to let your personal stuff get in the way. And I know it's hard because I think probably 90% of people do. What I mean by that is if I'm curating a New Yorker article or an art show or whatever, I don't care. Like if it's a poetry show.
Yeah.
If somebody gets up there and they're gonna like destroy men in suits, like Sean Battle got up and he's just killing white men in suits, and good, bro, because that's his expression, and I dig it because I dig where he's coming from. And my duty is to put on dope work. And I didn't put Sean on in that space; it was his show. But it's to put on dope work from all angles, and my duty in that role is to embrace dope work, not to make a judgment call about what you think about what I do during the day. And my job in there is not to make a judgment call. Well, I'm so artistic that you can't go. No, I have a job to do, and the principles of it should be predominant over my personal thing or my personal what you might think of me. And then I think we can break barriers better that way anyway. Because put everybody in a room that has dope art. Now you're sharing a common thread. Your common thread is dope art. I didn't get in the way of it with my personal nonsense. And now our common thread is doing the right thing. It doesn't get in the way with like where you come from. That has to happen more. I think it's artfully, like I don't know, I take it seriously. So I can exist in those spaces, but it's been a long journey because society doesn't always want you to exist in those spaces, and sometimes I'm comfortable with it. And I do have to say real quick that obviously this is all this is a little disclaimer.
Oh, for sure.
My personal opinion that I'm talking about here, and I'm not reflecting anybody else's views, any professional views, and nothing's legal advice, but I have to say it.
Same.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? So like, it's been, I think, and I wrote this the other day, this city has embraced me, and not, you might think they would want to pigeonhole. Some people are going to feel a certain way on either side. Some people at the, when I was at Essex Cross, you go to these shows and you're like, all right, bro, I don't got time. Some people in the arts were like, oh, you probably ain't got time. But you know what? Most people, like this city as a whole, is embracing me and everything. I'm like, damn, I got you. You're a writer, cool. You're a lawyer, cool. And guess what? This city, I'm not that much of a outlier in this city. Because the city's full of people who are artists, but also professionals, people in law enforcement, also professional people on the defense side, people who are activists against the system, who are also, I mean, this city is all of that. I'm nothing new to this city, which is why I think I've melded in so well. But it's not that, oh, look at me, some crazy unicorn thing, except, nah, this is like, oh, okay. Oh, okay, you ever meet so-and-so? He's that.
Yeah, it's of the fabric of the city.
Yeah,
truly.
That's powerful.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah, I think about it like disco balls. I think we're all disco balls, or can be disco balls. I think this world would rather us be Rubik's Cubes and easily identifiable and not as many facets. But like the thing about a disco ball is, the value of a disco ball is that when the light shines on it, it's in motion. And it's like, it's there for the light and it's in motion. And in motion, you get to see all of the facets. It's not for you to say like any one facet is the identity of the disco ball. The identity of it is all of these facets, independent and together. And in motion.
I love the in motion part.
So you get to lean into your art and then take a break from the art. You get to spin into your career and rest off the, like you can do all of those things as a human being, as the person that you are, because you are multifaceted, and whatever facet the light shines on you is brilliant and beautiful.
I love that.
It's like, it's a disco ball.
I love all that.
It's just what it is.
I love that.
You know what I mean?
I love
it. Yo, Rose, thank you so much, man. Absolutely.
Cathartic, and I came to my own revolution.
Hell yeah, same here, man.
Been dying to get on here.
Yeah, we'll do it again too.
Yes, sir.
I love it, man.
Yes, sir.
Word.
Me too.